Hi everyone, how are you doing? My name is Zarith Fazureen binti Abdul Halim and my metric number is U2004356. Before we start, have you heard about multiple intelligence? And do you know who Howard Gardner is? What? No? Okay, never mind today. I will share about Howard Gardner multiple intelligence theory. So, let's go.
Who was Howard Gardner? Howard Gardner is an American psychologist who specialized in cognitive and developmental psychology. He is best known for his theory of multiple intelligence. His theory has helped many professionals in the field of education to embrace the idea that there are many ways to be intelligent. Howard Gardner was born on July 11, 1943 in Scranton, Pennsylvania. His parents were Ralph and Hede Gardner. Gardner's parents were German Jewish immigrants who fled from Nazi persecution in Germany. They arrived in the United States with their 3-year-old son, Eric, on November 9, 1938, just before the outbreak of World War II. Gardner described his childhood self as a dark-haired, slightly chubby, bespectacled boy of above average height who walked and moved somewhat awkwardly. He was born with crossed eyes and had poor eyesight, but he also had a very curious mind and loved to read and write. Gardner would often ask his parents, teachers, adults, and older children very difficult questions. When he was 7 years old, he considered himself a journalist and began publishing his own home and school newspapers. Gardner was also a talented piano player and may have pursued a career in music. However, he stopped playing as a teenager because he thought it was too troublesome to practice. Gardner's parents discouraged him from getting involved in athletic or risky physical activities due to the circumstances of Eric's death. He spent several years as a Scout and Boy Scout, reaching the rank of Eagle Scout at the age of 13. Although Gardner eventually had a successful career as a psychologist and scientist, as a boy he was not particularly fond on exploring the outdoors. He was not interested in studying insects or dissecting mice unless he was trying to earn a scouting merit badge. His youth was not spent taking cars or gadgets apart and putting them back together. His only exposure to psychology occurred during his teenage year when he read an interesting discussion on color blindness in a psychology textbook. Nevertheless, education was of great importance in the Gardner household. Gardner's parents wanted him to attend Phillips Academy in Dover, but he chose to go to Wyoming Seminary because it was closer to home. He was an excellent student who did very well in math and science, but his main interests were in the literature, history, and the arts. He believed his parents had a major impact on his development, especially after they transferred their aspiration to him following the death of his talented older brother. Talking about his educational background, Gardner enrolled at Harvard College in September 1961. When he first arrived, he was a bit intimidated by the fact he now had peers who could match him in academics and the arts. However, he soon regained his focus and took advantage of the wide variety of academic courses available to him. Gardner's initial objective at Harvard was to major in history. In his junior and senior year, he was tutored by psychoanalyst Erik Erikson. Over time, Gardner's interest in the social science grew as he studied under cognitive psychologist Jerome Bruner and sociologist David Riesman. Interestingly, he also took a number of pre-med and pre-law courses to prove to himself and his parents that he could have had a successful career in those fields had he chosen to stick with them. In 1965, Gardner graduated summa cum laude with a bachelor's degree in social relations. After receiving his first degree, Gardner spent a year at the London School of Economics studying philosophy and sociology as a Harvard Fellow. However, he decided to return to Harvard to pursue graduate studies in developmental psychology after being inspired by the works of psychologist Jean Piaget. In 1967, Gardner became a founding member of Project Zero, a research group that studied cognition with a focus on creativity and artistic thought. He earned his PhD in development psychology in 1971. With his doctoral studies complete, Gardner worked with behavioral neurologist Norman Geschwin at Boston Veterans Administration Hospital as a postdoctoral fellow. He conducted neuropsychologist research at the hospital for more than 20 years. According to Gardner, he probably could have had a reasonably successful career as a cognitive neuroscientist or perhaps even a developmental neurobiologist, but he eventually left the straight science track and moved to issues of educational reform and social policy. Gardner accepted a teaching position at Harvard Graduate School of Education in 1986. Since 1995, he has spent most of his time working on the Good Work Project, which is a program that promotes ethics and excellence in work and life. In 1998, Gardner was selected as the John Hesh and Elizabeth A. Hobbs Professor of Cognition and Education at Harvard. He retired from teaching at the end of the 2019 academic year. So what is multiple intelligence? Multiple intelligence refers to a theory describing the different ways students learn and acquire information. This multiple intelligence ranges from the use of words, numbers, pictures, and music to the importance of social interaction, introspection, physical movement, and being in tune with nature. The theory posits that an understanding of which types of intelligence a student may possess can help teachers adjust learning styles and suggest certain career paths for learners. The theory has come under criticism from both psychologists and educators, where many believe that the 8 intelligence represent innate talents and ability. Cognitive psychologists have further stated that there is no empirical evidence to support the validity of this theory. This theory also proposes that people are not born with all of the intelligence they will ever have. This theory challenges that the traditional notion that there is one single type of intelligence, sometimes known as G for general intelligence, that only focuses on cognitive abilities. To broaden this notion of intelligence, Gardner introduced 8 different types of intelligence.
So here are the 8 different types of intelligence that has been introduced by him. We have visual spatial, linguistic verbal, interpersonal, intrapersonal, logical mathematical, musical, bodily kinesthetic, and lastly naturalistic. Now, let's go through one by one, okay? And I'm gonna start with bodily kinesthetic intelligence. What is bodily kinesthetic about? Bodily kinesthetic is the ability to manipulate both the body and object with a keen sense of timing is known as bodily kinesthetic intelligence. These people are able to accurately manipulate objects due to a strong mind-body union. This can be demonstrated in the form of physical skills, for example, athletes and dancers, or in positions and steady movements such as surgeons and craft people. While the ability to communicate effectively with others is common knowledge on the basis of interpersonal intelligence, it is not merely limited to verbal interactions. People with developed interpersonal intelligence are also able to read the moods of others. Sensitivity to temperaments and the ability to communicate non-verbally allow this individual to understand difference in perspective. Because they can often accurately assess the sentiments and motivation of others, this individual makes good social workers, teachers, and actors. Intrapersonal intelligence is the ability to understand one's own thought is known as an intrapersonal intelligence. Individuals who demonstrate intrapersonal intelligence are acutely aware of their feelings and can show appreciation for themselves and other humans. Often misconstrued as shy, these people are actually self-motivated and able to use their understanding to direct the course of their own life. Philosophers, psychologists, and religious leaders may all show high level of intrapersonal intelligence. Moving on to the next one is the ability to express oneself using word and language is known as verbal linguistic intelligence. This intelligence is unique because it is the most commonly shared human ability. It allows us to apply meaning to words and express appreciation for complex phrases. Through reading, writing, and sharing story orally, we are able to marvel at our use of language. We see examples of this skill in journalists, poets, and public speakers. Next one is logical mathematical intelligence. Sometimes misconstrued as simply the ability to calculate mathematical equations, logical mathematical intelligence is much more than that. Individuals with this developed intelligence demonstrate excellent reasoning skills, abstract thought, and the ability to infer based on the patterns. They are able to make connections based on the prior knowledge and are drawn to categorization, patterning, and relationship between ideas. With experiments and strategy game as two coveted activities, it would make sense that possible careers would include a scientist, a mathematician, and a detective. Musical intelligence. Musical intelligence is the ability to acutely reflect on sound is demonstrated by those who possess musical intelligence. These people are able to distinguish between specific pitches, tones, and rhythm that others may miss. Someone with musical intelligence is often a sensitive listener and can reflect or reproduce music quite accurately. Musicians, conductors, composers, and vocalists all demonstrate keen musical intelligence. As young adults, we can witness these people humming or drumming to a self-directed rhythm. Musical intelligence is also closely related to mathematical intelligence as they share a similar thinking process. Sensitivity to features in the natural world is most closely tied to what is called naturalist intelligence. The ability to distinguish between living and non-living things was notably more valuable in the past when humans were often farmers, hunters, or gatherers. Nowadays, this intelligence has evolved to more modern-day roles such as a chef or a botanist. We still carry traces of naturalist intelligence, some more so than others, which is evident by our preference for certain brands over others. Visually artistic people are known to demonstrate special intelligence. These abilities include manipulating image, graphic skill, and spatial reasoning, anything that would include more than two dimensions. They may be daydreamers or like to draw in their spare time, but also show an interest in puzzle or maze. Careers directly linked to spatial intelligence include many artistic vocations, for example, painters, architects, or sculptors, as well as careers that require the ability to visualize, such as pilots or sailors. Isn't that interesting? So from what I understand, I think that this theory states that each person has different ways of learning and different intelligence they use in their daily life, and all human beings have multiple intelligence. This multiple intelligence can be nurtured and strengthened or ignored and weakened. Each person possesses each intelligence to an extent, but there is always a primary or more dominant intelligence. One of the most significant results of the theory of multiple intelligence is how it has provided 8 different potential pathways to learning. If a teacher is having difficulty reaching a student in the more traditional linguistic or logical ways of instruction, the theory of multiple intelligence suggests several other ways in which the material might be presented to facilitate effective learning. The theory of multiple intelligence is so intriguing because it expands our horizon of available teaching and learning tools beyond the conventional linguistic and logical method used in most schools like lecture, textbook, writing, assignment, formulas, and else. When educators are given the freedom to move away from the traditional, visually based method of teaching, they will have the opportunity to reach more students more effectively. By teaching to the dominant learning intelligence, teacher will find students to be more productive, more receptive, and more willing to engage in the learning process. As so many educators have already embraced this theory, it is time for educational administrators to take notice of new techniques that can be successful based on the research of Howard Gardner'S and the other researchers who have followed. Critical thinking. Critical thinking is a skill that focuses on using logic and analysis and not just memorize facts to answer questions and solve problems. Essentially, critical thinking relies on practicing how to think, not what to think. For example, asking, "What makes biology a science?" requires far more thought and reflection than asking, "What is the definition of biology?" Many scholars argue that teaching critical thinking is essential for the effective education of children, especially gifted children, and point out that the traditional classroom may not provide enough opportunities to develop deep critical thought. So why does critical thinking matter? Critical thinking is an important skill for anyone to build because it helps people make better decisions in situations that do not have a clear answer. When children become better critical thinkers, they are more prepared to make better decisions in their personal or professional lives later on. We do not want to teach children to believe everything they hear, even if that means that they start to question to their own parents. Critical thinking has a purpose. Students are not just reciting memorized facts or spotting the easy answer. Critical thinking prepares children to think beyond opinions and basic facts so that they can make more informed and independent decisions. So how can teachers practice critical thinking towards their students? Critical thinking is an ongoing process that requires practice. Even when you aren't actively thinking about encouraging critical thinking, small change in your communication with your student can inspire more critical and independent thought. So, we can try to foster open-ended conversation. Children can learn critical thinking strategies by engaging in conversation or friendly debates with their peers. Children find critical thinking exercise more interesting when they relate to their interests and real-world situations. You can base your discussion on Supreme Court cases, news stories, social conflicts, or even characters or plots in your students' favorite television programs and movies. If children reflect on the strengths and weaknesses of their own opinions as well as their counter-arguments, they can make more logical decisions. During your debate or discussion, encourage your student to consider alternative explanation and solution to problems. Your gifted student may bring up ethical or philosophical questions that may not have a clear answer. Sometimes, admitting that you do not have the answer to certain questions can give children the chance to consider different viewpoints and beliefs. When your student comes to a conclusion that is different than yours, ask them about what led them to that conclusion rather than choosing a right or wrong side of the argument. This way, they can approach hard questions without being worried about having the wrong answer. So for example, next time you watch a television show or movie together, discuss the main character's dilemma. You can ask questions like, what is another way the character could have handled the situation? How would you have handled the situation? Next, we also can promote exploration. The curiosity of gifted children can sometimes be overwhelming, and we might want to brush off their question with an answer like, because I said so. Helping children work through their question by encouraging them to seek answers, consider alternatives, and come to their own conclusion can help them to create better problem-solving strategies. If their question can be answered immediately, making them responsible for scheduling research at a more convenient time can help them to develop time management responsibilities. For example, your student asks you a question to which he or she can find the answer, like what causes meteor showers? Or you can promote exploration by asking a guiding question like, what are some resources that we can use to find the answer? Next, ask for their explanations. Studies show that having an audience can help children better evaluate their arguments. Children can learn by giving reasons for their own conclusion and considering alternative points of view. In a study of children's learning through self-explanation, children were more likely to present alternative ideas, provide more detail, and include more justification for their argument when they explain a concept to their peers. Additionally, children who play a video game and regularly explain their strategy show more evidence of learning than children who do not explain their strategies. For example, ask your student about his or her strategy and planning during activities. These include video games, computer games, and board or card games. Point out parts of their strategy that use logic, probability, and economic principles. Next, by promote personal decision making. Critical thinking requires children to make decisions on their own, and parents or teachers can provide safe situations for them to practice this. While children are given the opportunity to figure out the answer and consider alternatives, this allows for more innovation, exploration, and retain knowledge. For example, if your student comes to you with a problem like whether to save or spend last month allowance, or what book to choose for a book report, help your student consider the pros and cons. But don't be afraid to let him or her make a wrong choice. The two of you can evaluate this decision later with questions such as, how do you feel about your decision? Or what would you do differently next time? And lastly, support participation in activities that foster critical thinking. Your student may already engage in critical thinking exercises through extracurricular activities like Odysseys of the Mind, chess club, and debate or forensics team. Recent research show that students who play videos and computer games in moderation often engage in exercise that promote critical thinking. In particular, many games enable children to face challenging logic or probability puzzles, make decisions and evaluate their outcome, learn from and collaborate with their peers, and consider alternative strategies. For example, numerous websites provide free critical thinking exercises through math puzzle, philosophical writing prompts, and logic puzzle.
Here are some examples of critical thinking activity books and also a video of critical thinking activities that can be taught to gifted and talented children. Check it out!
Okay, and we are playing a game with this ball, and I have given them 3 rules, and they are challenged to figure out how to play the game. And one of the rules is
you cannot let the ball drop the floor. Get on the floor.
okay, so you cannot drop the floor. Okay, Jasper,
You cannot use your vocals.
cannot talk, cannot use any kind of vocals. Charlie,
You can't touch the ball like twice.
yes, you can only, each person can only touch the ball one time. Okay, so far we've been playing it a couple rounds and they've been doing okay, but they haven't quite figured out or analyzed exactly how to play the game. Okay, so we're gonna do this, and I'm gonna kind of sit back and let you see. Okay, all right, let's do this. Okay, y'all get in your circles. Okay, both hands drop. Okay, I'm gonna give the ball to Amy. Okay, here we go. So now we have to start again. Okay, starting over. Okay, let's get in our circle. Let's see, Amy, I'm not in your circle. Okay, good. Okay, all right, start again. Okay, good job, guys. Okay, but have you figured out how to play the game?
No.
No? You haven't. You haven't yet. You haven't figured out how to play the game just yet.
It takes a lot of thinking.
It does. It takes a lot of analyzing, doesn't it? Okay, I'm going to turn us off, and then we're going to continue to play. And then I'm going to get back with you guys, and I'm going to let you know how well they did, because I know they are up for this challenge to figure this out.
So, to conclude, employable individuals who have graduated from college and university must be inquisitive, challenging problem solver. Graduates must be able to take the knowledge that they learn and apply this to new knowledge and reasoning skill in the new work environments they will encounter. It is necessary for educators to apply Howard Gardner theory of multiple intelligence to enhance the learning experience of the students. To continue to remain employable, critical thinking skill must be taught and applied to real-world experience. Alright, so that's all from me. I hope you have learned something from this video and thanks for watching. Bye-bye!